How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel. I promised in the last video on this topic that if I hit 500 likes, I would make a part 2. And I'm a man of my word, I got way more than 500 likes, so maybe I underestimated myself. So here I am with 5 more cheap luxury cars that you can buy for less than £20,000. As discussed in that video, there are cars that give you that slightly higher level of luxury, going towards the kind of cars that would cost you £200,000 or £300,000, but you're getting them for under £20,000. So yes, not objectively cheap, but relatively cheap when compared with other luxury cars in their class. I've ordered them from least to most brake horsepower to reduce bias on my side. And don't forget that whenever you buy any second-hand car, maintenance, repairs, insurance, road tax, all that stuff's really important to remember, and I'll mention it throughout this video. But all of these cars cost a lot of money to buy when they were brand new, and that usually means they'll cost a lot to maintain. So even though you can get them for a cheap price, they'll probably still cost you shed loads to keep running. Topic of the week this week, I want you to comment on this down below. In the last video, I asked you performance or luxury, and there was quite a fair split down the middle. Now I want you to answer, would you rather drive or be driven in a luxury car? So would you rather be driving the Rolls Royce or be driven around in it? Anyway, remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's begin with the newest car on this list, the Mercedes-Benz E350 AMG Line edition, and more specifically, the coupe and convertible versions on the C207 platform. Confusingly, this doesn't share its chassis with the E-Class saloon and estate, but instead with the C-Class of the same era. It's basically a successor to the CLK class of Mercedes, but with an E badge attached. The engine is a 3-litre turbo diesel V6, which puts out 254 brake horsepower, taking the car from 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds, which is not bad, although 0 to 60 times aren't really the focus of luxury or executive cars anyway. There were sadly no AMG models of the coupe or convertible made, hence I suggested the AMG line, but having driven one, I can tell you the E350 has very decent torque through the range, as you might expect from any diesel, and it really pushes you along. The only real differences you get by going for an AMG line is the sporty body styling, 15mm lower suspension, silver painted front brake calipers, and wider 18-inch alloys. Either way, the car won the Auto Bild Design Award for Germany's most beautiful coupe and the Automotor und Sport Autonist Design Award for the convertible. And I personally have to agree, they are very good looking cars. The key benefit of going for these is that new factor. We're talking 2016 models, so only 4 years old, meaning they come with some pretty fresh tech to flesh out that very comfortable and wafty looking interior. Mercedes consistently bang out these luxurious but simple interiors, and the AMG Line E350 definitely has that feeling. These go for as little as £16,000 for a car with 70,000 miles on the clock, but for 20 grand you'll get a convertible with around 20k on the clock. Not bad at all. On reliability, Mercedes were looking to redeem themselves after some recent failures had slightly reduced consumers' trust. I can't see any hugely common issues related to the engine, so they definitely did well on that part, but the electrics have been problematic, with sensors failing in particular. The engine is ultimately the same as that in the S I mentioned in the last video though, and many of these have proven themselves for over 200,000 miles in taxis, so they clearly have some longevity to them. All in all, a very good looking car in my opinion, with the added benefit of being relatively modern. A very nice cabin to be in, and definitely a luxury car that you'd rather be driving than driven in. Many of you are noting a severe lack of Porsches in the last video, and you certainly weren't wrong, as the Porsche Panamera offers a very decent level of luxury despite being slightly dated compared with the Mercedes for under £20,000. The most savage example you'll be able to get for your 20 grand is the 4.8 litre V8 engined 4S, which puts out 394 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds, making it the second quickest car on this list by just 0.1 seconds. Stay tuned to see exactly what will outrun it. I've mentioned this before, but the name sort of references the Carrera range of Porsches, as both are named after the Carrera Panamericana, which was a border-to-border race through Mexico, sort of like the Mille Miglia. Naturally, however, when it first arrived on the scene, Porsche purists were not happy. Similar to the Cayenne SUV, this was seen as an attempt to make Porsches appeal to a wider audience. Purists wanted more 911s, but Porsche gave them a full-size luxury car instead, with rear seats you can actually sit in, and a real focus on giving you a luxury interior that you can actually enjoy. However, Porsche still wanted to provide, in their words, a quintessentially Porsche appearance, with Porsche driving dynamics but a bunch more space. My personal favourite thing about this car is the number of different specs you could get, even as far back as 2009. One of my favourites is the Yachting Blue, with that unreal two-tone interior. £18,000 £20,000 is the minimum you'll spend to get one of these, and £20,000 will get you a 2010 example with around 70,000 miles on the clock. Owners on forums are very complimentary about the car generally, and reliability is no exception. The key issues to look for are generally oil and leak related, and some have suffered from ball wear at higher mileage. Don't forget it's also a VW group car, so of course coil packs have been known to go too, and the PDK auto box should be checked for leaks before buying, as in general a Porsche will have a Porsche maintenance and repair cost attached, which we do not like to see. All in all, I'd say quite an underrated car, especially with the number of different specs you can get your hands on. Shop around and find yourself the ideal one for you. It would be rude to make a video on luxury cars without mentioning a car from a brand like Bentley, and in the last video I brought you the Continental GT or Flying Spur, but if you're looking for a slightly more classic bit of luxury, the Arnage is a surprisingly pretty looking, if dated, luxury car, and it was the first Bentley to arrive under VW's ownership. I would say it actually looks a bit more classy than the Continental, but that's just opinion, so feel free to ignore. When it was new, it cost over £140,000, so the fact that some of the smaller engine examples go for as little as £13,000 should tell you that something bad must have happened. For £20,000 you'll get a red label with around 40,000 miles on the clock too, which is pretty insane. Just wanted to pause there. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you are, make sure you hit the like button. It really helps the video and helps other people find these videos too, so I can share them with more people. Also hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, because you'll get 2 car videos every single week, which is all good stuff. And if you're not already following me on Instagram at carswithjb, make sure you head over there. I post every single day more car content for you guys to enjoy. Loads of discussion, loads of conversations over there. Go get involved. So what bad thing happened to allow these to depreciate so heavily? Reliability happened. According to experts on the cars, they needed proper maintenance from day one, which the majority of people didn't do, meaning by 40,000 miles many started to suffer head gasket failure, which is cripplingly expensive with that 6.8 litre V8 block. Also, the way the car was built meant some smaller jobs like a leak in the air injection system can be an entire gearbox or engine out job, which racks up the costs in labour. I'm often optimistic about your chances with many cheap second-hand cars, as there are a lot of internet mechanics out there who I wouldn't listen to, the kind of people who tell you that anything older than a year old is going to explode into 1,000 pieces the moment you buy it. But this is one of those very few cars that, despite the allure of being a cheap Bentley, I wouldn't suggest you actually buy a cheap example of, based on how many owners have had bad experiences with them. Forums are full of advice on how to go about getting a good example that won't run your bank account into the ground though long term, so it's not all bad. If you do decide to ignore that and go for a cheap one, you'll be getting that 6.8 litre V8 engine I mentioned, putting out 400 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 6 seconds, meaning you'll outrun the Mercedes I mentioned at the start of the video at least to 60. It was actually very briefly the most powerful and fastest 4-door saloon available, despite being absolutely massive at over 5 meters long and 1.9 meters wide. Of all the cars in this list, the key luxury factor is that interior, which came in multiple different specs, often two-tone and always looking regal. A very analog dashboard, and although it's slightly more plastic than you like, it's still pretty luxurious. Sadly though, I can't quite get over that reliability aspect, so I'm going to swiftly move on to the top 2. Another slightly more premium brand at number 2 is the Maserati Quattroporte S, which was actually produced to compete in the same class as the Bentley mentioned previously. I'd probably say the Bentley has a slightly more luxurious or rich feel to it, but you can't overlook the Quattroporte at this price point. And again, when it comes to the engine, it's that Ferrari Maserati collab 4.7 litre naturally aspirated V8, putting out 423 brake horsepower, which sends it from 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds, with a stunning soundtrack all the way there. The car was designed by Pininfarina's chief designer Ken Okuyama and sat on the M139 platform, which later also housed the Gran Turismo and Gran Cabrio. It was aimed at being luxury from the start, with limited editions appearing early on in its production to give it that feel of exclusivity from the get-go. But the 4.7 litre Quattroporte S came out after the facelift, which updated the interior with new colour options and a new infotainment system, as well as a redesigned front and rear to bring the car up to date with more modern design principles. This actually went down really well with a lot of automotive journalists, who named it a sports car in black tie, referring to the combination of it being a luxury car as well as a sports car. If I was going for one of these, I'd probably be looking for one with the trident embroidered into the headrest, because I've always been a big fan of that look in Maseratis. The oldest examples with the 4.2 litre engine are listed for around £80,000, but for 20 grand you'll get a 4.7S with 50k on the clock. In terms of reliability, it's a horrendously complex engine, and you definitely don't want to be involved in one that's going wrong, as they're not cheap to fix. Timing variators can be an issue, as can oil or water leaks. On top of this, the electricals have had problems even on low mileage examples, which is never a good sign. However, relative to their reputation, reputation, owners are often quite complimentary about how well they hold up when looked after properly. So certainly a question around reliability and maintenance might cost an arm and a leg in the longer term, but the money to luxury ratio makes this a car that can't be ignored. Taking the top spot, we have a car that you see regularly parked outside fancy hotels in London, usually black with blacked out rear windows, and a very bored looking driver waiting for someone rich, busy and important looking to jump in so they can take them to the next expensive place. It is of course the 4th generation Jaguar XJ, which is the second newest car on this list. The reason it takes the top spot is because if you wanted to add some performance to your luxury, you could go for the 5-litre supercharged V8 engine, which puts out 502 brake horsepower, making it the fastest car on this list from 0 to 60 at 4.7 seconds. The car was designed by the great Ian Callum, and as with the Maserati I just mentioned, it was unveiled at Pebble Beach, one of the fanciest events you can unveil a car. Though mechanically the car is an evolution of the previous car, visually it is hugely different, stepping away from the boxy vibe and going for a much beefier, executive style of luxury. Hence in London you see a lot of people in suits in the back of these. The long wheelbase model was actually designed first, with the short wheelbase following, and for maximum luxury it has to be the former so you can stretch out those legs in the back. The interior is luxurious if understated, but a massive benefit is the Bowers & Wilkins 7.1 surround sound speakers. If you've ever been in one of these, you'll know it's a properly rich and smooth sound. In addition to this, the power sunscreens are a massive flex when you don't want the outside world to see you chilling in the back. 20 grand will get you a supercharged V8 with quite high miles, but if you go for the newer TD V6, you're looking at around 45,000 miles on the clock for that kind of money. Reliability on the 5-litre supercharged V8 looks actually okay, and owners are tremendously complimentary, although the running costs are still astronomical considering the size and weight of the car coupled with that massive engine. Instead, everyone notes the roof popping issue, where the sunroof starts making popping noises. I noted a few disgruntled owners feeling embarrassed when this happened while having passengers in the car, but ultimately Jag offered a fix for this. A beast of a car, and definitely in my opinion one of those cars you want to be driven around in rather than driving, unless you go for that 5-litre supercharged V8, in which case it would be rude not to send it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit the like button, it would be really appreciated by me. Also, I'm sorry there's been no Audis or BMWs in these videos, only because I felt that they weren't as luxurious inside as some of the other cars that we've spoken about for the money, basically. So apologies to those of you who are fans. I'm a fan of both of them. I just didn't think any were luxurious enough. Anyway, massive thank you to the patrons. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.